Hey guys, it's your girl Kizzy Rock, and yes, Kizzy Rock is my birth given name. Happy Tuesday, guys. Want to say hey to all my subscribers. New as well as season. Got a word for you. Tap in. Happy Tuesday, guys. So today's topic is a little bit different. I want to piggyback off of a conversation I was having with a gentleman, and we were talking about men who use their money to control women, as well as the importance of independence, how do you blend it, etc., etc. So I want to kind of hit it from different angles here. So basically, he was being very honest, very transparent. I love transparency. So he was basically taught very early on from like the men who raised him, his fathers and his uncles. He's from a very big family. They're from like the rural area, like country towns, things like that. So he said he's always seen the men, including his father, use money to control or manipulate women, if you will. Again, no one's celebrating it. In fact, he wasn't either. He's had like a wake-up call because he's now realizing that the way he was conditioned was not the right or the healthy way. But you only know what you know, right? Same as women who may raise their daughters to be all about money. Sorry, guys. Things like that. And then you realize that, again, certain things that you may have been taught or encountered, if you will, then you wake up one day and realize that people can only teach you what they have known. So he's coming into an epiphany because one of the several women that he, yes, one of the several women that he's been dealing with has now find some level of independence, and he's losing his mind because he's obviously losing control of the situation. He's very he is well-to-do, so he can provide for several women at a time. But it's crazy because he was telling me that the one woman who has now found her independence and pulling away, he's now realizing the feelings that he had for her was more than when she, quote unquote, wasn't independent. Almost like you don't realize, what you had until it's gone, that type of thing, or whatever the case may be. So it's crazy. And I was like, well, are you really realizing feelings that you had for her? Or is it because you're losing that control that's making you feel like you just want to try to amp up your game? Right? Is it really, really feelings? Is it really, really love? Or is it the lack of control and you're now trying to control the situation again? So he had to think about that. But regardless, that's not the topic here. So I was telling him that, again, this is not a topic that's not uncommon. In fact, especially, back in the days, our parents, our grandparents, sometimes they didn't have they just had to tolerate a lot of stuff because they were just no independence. And again, this is not everyone. So I was telling him, I said, what's so sad is that a lot of men don't even realize that if you find the right woman, if you allow God to bring you the right woman, and she's on her grind as well, right? Not even in the masculine way, if you will, whatever, but she's on her grind as well. And when you two encounter each other, the level you guys can reach, like, that's power couple. But instead, many men are raised to specifically, right, target women based on looks solely. Again, we know men are visual. That's going to never change. But I'm talking about looks solely. Or many times when you're going based on looks solely and you're being vain, then you're going to attract a vain, soulless type of woman. And so, yes, now you shower her with all this money, with all this gift, etc., and eventually you start to manipulate it where you can control her, because if she doesn't listen or she doesn't do this, you're not going to pay the rent, or you're not going to pay this and pay that. All right, cool. So now you got her where you want her at. But here's the thing. The way you attracted her, she really was never really into you. So she was all about the money and whatever you can provide initially. So what you don't think about is, because she's never really into you how you think, then the next dude that comes around with money, sometimes even more money than yours, or if she had enough of your BS and she decides to go out and get her own job, then what? And so that's what happened. She met another dude, and the dude is obviously supplying for her to the point where she doesn't have to deal with this gentleman's stuff, and he's losing his mind because he can't control her. So to any men, if you feel like you're using that all you have to offer is materialistic things or your money or your wealth or whatever, like what is it within you, right? We're not speaking on about being conditioned or raised that way, but what is it about you that you feel that the only way you can attract a woman is through your money and your wealth and materialistic things? What's missing there? What's missing? That there's something missing within you, your spirit, your whatever, your personality, your character, whatever. What is it within you that you don't feel good enough about yourself, that within you is good enough that you can attract a woman without tossing money to her? And again, we're not speaking about the people who intentionally use their wealth to control people. We're talking about the ones who feel like that's the only way they can encounter women. Because the time is going to come when she's going to meet someone else. She's probably not even into you. She's into you for what you can do for her, because that's the way you guys met. So this is why you can have a woman who's dealing with a guy that has all this money, and then she ends up encountering a dude that might be broke as a joke, but this dude can straight like pull her, and she has feelings for the broke dude. And it doesn't make sense to you. You're thinking like, I don't understand. I'm sitting here doing this, and that, and this dude can't even get you a Slurpee. So you're foolish. Why would you go? No, sir, you're actually foolish. It's not her being foolish. She's connected, broke or not, right? I mean, I ain't got time for that. But she connected with a broke, quote unquote, broke gentleman because she connected with him. Even if he's running game, the point is she connected with him. She was only with you because you presented all the materialistic stuff in the beginning, and then that's how the rest of the relationship follows. I told you guys about this situation. I was on a date a couple of years ago, and the same thing happened with me. This guy is loaded, like seriously, like loaded. And I'm not talking about like just petty. He's loaded. And the first 2 hours of the date, right? Very, very nice date, I must add, right? But the first 2 hours, all I heard about was everything he's got and this, everything was just based around money and materialistic things, right? And of course I didn't want to like take his manhood away from him. So I listened. It was annoying, but I listened. And so I said at the very end, God used me to drop some wisdom within his mind, like I'm speaking now with this gentleman at the beginning of the recording. I was having this discussion with him, and he just said, he was like, no, honestly, it's crazy because the majority of women, right? That's what they want. And so I was telling him, even if that's what they want, why do you feel like you have to give it to them? So you can know that a woman is materialistic. She's a quote unquote gold digger. She's vain, whatever. She's just beautiful. But you can know that she only wants you for X, Y, and Z. How does that even add up? Because if it was me, I would be turned off knowing that she only wants me for that. But again, I think men think differently sometimes for women. Obviously, right? But when you tap into your true, authentic self, man or woman, and you know who you are, you don't move with the masses. It doesn't matter what someone else wants or whatever. Like, listen, I'm so solid that you're going to be attracted to my spirit. But see, when you're lacking in certain areas and you haven't really tapped into who you are, then you have to use this vain stuff. Let it be women who's using their looks or men who's using their money, versus you tapping into who you are, right? Allowing God to bring your peoples, your soul tribe, whatever. And then you guys are together authentically because you're connected spiritually, soul-wise, versus looks versus money. And now you're out here losing your mind because you're realizing now that your money can't control her any longer. And you're losing your mind because this broke dude came and she's in love with a broke dude, and you're still trying to make sense of how could she be caught up with a broke dude and he can't do anything for her when you're able to pay for her Benz, for her condo, for her this, for her that. Well, it's not rocket science. It's really not. So that's the conversation we were having, right? But I want to tell any men who may be listening, seriously, because I do know a lot. I even know men personally who say they were raised that way. They were raised that way, right? So it's not their fault. But once you have a revelation to understand that you were raised a certain way, once you realize that when you get that first heartbreak and you realize that your money can't control and X, Y, and Z, right? Your heart is going to break even further knowing that a broke dude came and and you're, and it's not funny, but he is going on and on and on and on about how much money he spent and lost in the last 8 years. Like, you keep talking about the money. I'm trying to get you to understand that she has a connection with broke dude. He called him broke dude. She has a connection with broke dude. She only was with you because how you guys met. This is why too, I always tell guys too, and I know ladies, y'all probably gonna give me a hard time, but I'm just real, right? Even if you meet a chick you're dating, even because some guys are just very, very like, they love to shower women with gifts, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. But hold that stuff back at the beginning, because if you start that way, you're going to attract the wrong type of people. So wait until you're solid in the sense of you guys have really gotten to know each other, and for you can be sure that she's just not a gold digger, if you will. Then all that stuff can happen after the fact. You know what? I just had a flashback. So I was dating this guy at the very beginning. We were dating for years. But at the very beginning, this is a long time ago. At the very beginning, I didn't know he had money, honestly, because most people who have money, you don't even know, right? You don't even know, with the exception of the one guy who I said I had been on a date with a couple of years ago. I know he had money. But he's the only guy who I know have like seriously long money and still really flashy. So I think it's just more of just stuff he deal with internally. But most people who have money, they're going to hold that stuff back because they don't want you to want them for the money. Anyway, so he called me I think we were dating for like 3 months at this point. He called me one day and he was like, could he swing by my job because he needed $5, right? And I promise you, I was busy at the job. I was like, okay, come by. So when he came by, I gave him $10. All I had was a $10 bill. I gave him a $10 bill. And he took the money and I didn't think nothing of it. I didn't say, well, why did you need $10? Like, when are you going to give it back to me? Like, none of that. Just, here you go, boo. I got you. But he kept staring at me and I couldn't understand. Dude, I'm at work. Take this money. I'll call you later. But he was mesmerized, right? And I couldn't grasp it. So maybe like a month later, we were out to dinner or whatever. And he said, I didn't need that $5. And I was like, well, why are you wasting my time? You're disturbing me. I'm trying to work here. And he was just like, in all honesty, I've never, had a woman who never failed the test. What test? Are you testing me, sir? You wasted my time just to test me? Right? And he's like, no, Kizzy, I'm serious. I've never had a woman who passed the test. If anything, it's like, well, you're a man. Well, you need $5 for, or you must be broke. Blase, 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 blase. But whatever, I don't know. I'm just a different type of breed, right? I ain't got time for the nonsense, right? You got me, I got you, point blank, period. So anyway, to my guys, please stop feeling like you have to attract a woman solely about, and I know I'm not clueless here. I know the majority of women are very materialistic and they're about money and what you can do for them. I'm not denying that. I'm just saying that, why do you feel like you have to be a part of that? Right? Because it's not authentic. You want somebody who's authentic. Next, to those of you, again, who are trying to control people with your money, it's going to blow up in your face. It's going to blow up on your face because there's no real connection. So anything that comes by and makes a authentic connection, let it be game or no game, She may not leave you if you're the one supplying all the money. She's going to keep taking your money, and she's going to spend your money on broke dude. Just telling you. Ladies, I know I might be giving away a game. Just bear with your girl here, right? I'm a real one. Okay. Next, independent woman. Okay, here's the thing. Listen. If I could get a tattoo on my forehead to tell everybody the importance of independence, then I would. I won't, but I would. Now, let's be clear here, right? Again, some women, many women, a lot, were conditioned to be too independent, right? So it's about finding that balance. It's still about being independent, but still knowing how to be in a partnership. I really had to learn this seriously. Being independent, but still knowing how to allow the man to be a man, if that makes sense. So he doesn't have the ability to control you with his money because you got your own. I'm sure a lot of men don't want to hear that because they want to, sometimes they want to be controlling and et cetera, et cetera. But listen. Now, again, our peoples, our ancestors, our grannies and great grannies and things like that. I only imagine now how many of them were truly never even in love. And this is why you had so many individuals that we may have heard stories of, or we may have even seen on our own, sleeping in separate rooms and X, Y, and Z. And like, was it ever even really love, or were they just, and I'm sure there are some, but were they just together because the men had the money and they can control? So the woman couldn't do anything. She couldn't leave if she wanted to leave, right? She couldn't leave if she knew he had 13 side chicks with 9 babies on the same street. She couldn't leave. So was it ever really love back in those days? And again, I'm sure there was some. I'm not clueless. Independence is crucial. It's crucial, but it's also crucial, again, to be sure that you start unlearning a lot of the ways that you were conditioned to be too strong, too independent, and learn how to shelf it and pull it out at certain times. And that takes intentionality, especially when you were raised a certain way. But here's what I want to say to you. You hear all this talk, of course, recently and nowadays about men choose a woman at a certain age, a certain this, and a woman on, if she want to put her career first, or she want to do this, and she's not married by 25, and X, Y, and Z, and blase, blase, her chances are slim, and blase, 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 meaning because you're now older, you can't attract certain men, and you have to go ahead and lock this man down, or allowing this guy to lock you down while you're 25, because the time is going to come where you're, 50 and 60 years old and you can't find a man. So you better go ahead and marry while you're 25, 21, 25, so you don't be out here trying to find your life. But what I don't hear people talking about now, and I promise you on everything I love, this talk doesn't bother me. Here's why. Because my mindset is different. And I know it's rare. I can see why women will be triggered by conversations like this. But I'm not a person who ever felt like you must be married, or you're nothing if you're not married, X, Y, and Z. I've never been that person, right? I've always been that person who feels like purpose, calling, et cetera, et cetera. I'm whole as an individual. And if God says marriage is in the cards, blah, blah, then fine. But not like, oh, my value comes from my husband and X, Y, and Z. I done turned down 3 proposals because I know without 2 from the same person, because I know without and if you're listening, boo, thank God, right? You better be thanking God, because I would have probably made your life hell, right? Because let's say it, anything that ain't from God, honey, is going to be hell. So my point is this right here. Why aren't people talking about these women who decide to say, all right, I better take the first thing smoking at 25 because my clock is ticking, and they said if I turn 26 without a man or a husband, I'm going to be old maid and I'm going to be out here 50, 60 years old trying to find a man. Okay, but what about the many situations where people have took to this not lifestyle, but took to this whatever, and they're married at 25, but now at, I don't know, 35, 10 years within the marriage, her husband leaves her for someone else for whatever reason. What about the relationships that the woman married early, and now she's 55 and her husband is 65. He's going through a midlife crisis. He's losing his mind because he can't even, get up no more. I'm just saying, keep it real. We're grown here. And now he got to find him a 21-year-old and make him feel young again within his own insecurities, right? So he leaves his wife, who married him at 25, did the right thing, if you quote unquote will. He left her. He divorced her and married a 21-year-old. So now she's out here 55, right? Which is still young, ladies. Don't get offended, right? She's out here 55. But the world told her that she should get married at a young age so she can avoid being 55 out here in these streets, trying to find something. But see, you don't hear people talk about that. They're just telling you that you got to have somebody lock you down by 21, 25, because if not, you're going to be in these streets trying to find life out at 55. Which may very well be true, but why is there no conversation about the people who did it the right way, or I guess it's the right way, and later on in life, they still are single for whatever reason, because the man left her or whatever. Even the man may have passed away. He may have passed away. So your independence needs to be with or without a man. So if your 65-year-old husband leave you for a 21-year-old, and you never decide to be independent because you were taught that you should be married by 21, 25. So you don't have to worry about dependence because you got a man who's going to be taking care of you until Jesus call you home. Okay. So to my sisters, to those of you who are in your feelings and you've been hearing this talk for like the last year, we're not going to call any certain names, but with these internet people, YouTube people and stuff is trying to make you feel like, you're now from that age where no one can choose you, or maybe you've had several children, or maybe you're up in a certain age or whatever. Please consider that there are people who did it the quote unquote right way, and their peoples left them for whatever reason. So you're 55 and they're in your ear that you didn't do things the right way. Now you out here 55 in these streets. Okay. Where the person next to you did it the right way. She got married at 21, whatever. Marriage lasted many, many years. Husband went through a midlife crisis. Now he's 65, she's 55. And he left her for a 21-year-old. She's back in these streets, sis. You 55 in the streets. She 55 in the streets. The difference is you may have put your career first and you're solid. She didn't put her career first, or she didn't understand the importance of independence. So she's back in the streets and broke. And as a woman, the worst feeling in the world is not to feel secured. You're secured. She's not secured. And not saying she did anything wrong. I'm just trying to make a point here, right? She went on what society says. So it's important. This is why it's important to think for yourself. Have a mind of your own. March to the beat of your own drums. And again, it's not saying that one way is right or one way is wrong. It's about what works for you. You can't allow society. I gave y'all a whole list of individuals who married older to wealthy men. Let's talk about, I've said Gabrielle Union. I've said Monica. Who else I had said in that recording? I forgot to say which is popping up in my spirit now. Let's take Shawnee and Pastor Keon. Shawnee got 4 kids. 4. Or is it 5? I think Shawnee got four children. And Shawnee, she got 4 children. And Shawnee is, I don't know, maybe 50. I can't pull it up. Shawnee, maybe, if she's not 50, probably very close to 50. And got a whole wealthy man. Okay, so I can go on and on about women. Oh, I also said Mrs. Marjorie Harvey, who I think is just everything. Mrs. Marjorie Harvey and Steve. I've called out other women. Now, here's what I want to also say too, really quickly. These women had their stuff together, right? So you can't be out here 50 and 6 and you don't got your stuff together, right? You got to still be physically able, physically try to keep up with yourself the best you can. You still need to be bringing something to the table, right? So it's not like any of these women we can look at and say, well, I mean, they look like the scum of the earth and they really let themselves go and they're 50 and then they snagged a millionaire. No, these chicks are still bad, right? So you can't be clueless. So is it really, really about age? Now, and again, you can't deny the fact that your I guess maybe percentage may be cut off because to a certain degree, because remember, there's still a certain amount of men who may want children if you're into younger guys, especially, right? So you can't deny that. And I think it'd be selfish, if you're 50 or, well, let me take that back because 50-year-olds having babies now, right? But if you're 60 or so on or whatever, I think it's selfish if you meet somebody who wants children and you can't or you don't want any, then I think that's selfish there. But the point, in my opinion, I'm making is it really, really about age or is it about finding what works for you? But again, we never can deny the fact ever, and I don't think any man will disagree, maybe, I don't know, that men are visual. Because someone said to me, actually a guy said to me when I made that recording about when I was calling out everybody's name, like Monica and such and such, everybody who was like 35 and over or 40 and over who met their peoples when they were in their 40s and their 50s. And then a guy emailed me. He was like, Kizzy, he said, you're right. I hear what you're saying about these women, but you can't compare these women, Mrs. Marjorie and whoever else I name, to just your average 50-year-old who refused to keep up with herself. She's 350 pounds. Lord, listen, if any of you are 350, please don't get offended. This is what he said. And listen, says you're just thick. Okay, you're thick. So he said, you have women, you're giving people false hopes because you have women who may be 350 and just out of shape, don't keep up with herself, refuse to do anything to help herself or help her life, assuming that she can pick up a millionaire because X, Y, and Z. He was like, please look at these women based on the woman you're talking to. And I was like, I mean, you don't even know who I'm talking to. How do you know who's on the other side of this recording? But I agree with him. You can't deny the fact. I mean, all these women I'm speaking about, I mean, these women are independent in their own right. These women obviously keep themselves up to a certain standard. I think that's very, very important when you are considering, what I'm speaking about here. So what do you bring to the table? And I know I can hear y'all women now. But I ask again, what do you bring to the table? Just a headache? No, you got to have your game tight. You got to have your game tight. Like, seriously. Because any average man, not average, but any guy who really is considered to be a high value or even high earner, whatever, listen. Look at the woman on his side. Let's just keep it real here now. Right? So we can't be clueless, think that we can just be out here wandering and not really keeping ourselves up and don't bring anything to the table other than drama and a headache and some Cheetos. Thinking we're going to grab a millionaire, right? I'm just saying. I'm just having fun, guys. So I wanted to share that with you guys, though. You guys have a great one. It's your girl, Kizzy Rock.